Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And the madness that is Scottish prison service goes beyond parody. It is now in the realm of fantasy. Now, I have done many stories on this, but even I am at a loss for words when you hear what is happening now. There is a man called Daniel Eastwood. He's a 38-year-old prisoner. He now wants to be known as Sophie Eastwood because he doesn't want to go into a man's prison because he thinks that will be the end of him if he did. But even then, being a woman isn't enough, and he is the one who identifies as a baby, so he gets to wear a nappy, suck a dummy, and eat baby food. And he's trying to gaslight people because he's seen the shift. He's seen men who identify as women being put into men's prisons, and he's absolutely shitting himself. Let's look at this story. And you honestly couldn't make this up. Transgender prisoner who changed from male to female and who now identifies as a baby in a Scottish prison at the heart of the Sturgeon Row, which is Cornton Vale, now says he fears he would not survive if moved to a men's jail. You think so, sunshine? Transgender prisoner Sophie Eastwood, real name Daniel, 38, says he is scared of a men's prison, and yet not so scared that he still did the crime, you know. The prisoner, who identifies as a baby, claims he would be at risk of SV. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Anyway, this transgender prisoner, who is locked up in a woman's jail, says he fears he would not survive. Daniel Eastwood was jailed at Dumfries Young Offenders Institution for dangerous driving at the age of 18 and was a month away from the end of his sentence when he strangled cellmate Paul Algie, 22, to death with shoelaces in 2004. So he gets what he deserves. He's a very dangerous individual who needs to stay in prison for the remainder of his life, and preferably that would be in a man's prison, and hopefully not for very long. Eastwood, now 38 and identifying as a female named Sophie, began transitioning while in prison in 2017 so that he could go to a woman's jail because easier time for men. This is Scotland's only all-female jail, and the prison has found itself at the centre of a row over transgender inmates after the convicted Ara of women, Isla Bryson, who attacked two women while living as a man, was initially housed there before being lifted and put in a man's prison after the massive backlash caused by the moron Sturgeon's insistence that men with penises are in fact women. Well, it's cost her her job, and I think a few more jobs need to be sacrificed on this to make sure that it doesn't happen again. For example, everyone involved in the decision-making process that allows these things to happen needs to be shown that they're incapable of doing their jobs and to lose them overnight and immediately. In the wake of the controversy, which dragged Nicola Sturgeon's position as First Minister into turmoil, the Scottish Prison Service announced a full case review for every transgender person. Read that as man, because there are nil women in men's prisons. Every single transgender prison in the Scottish Prison Service is a man. Now, Eastwood, who's also claimed he identifies as a baby, what else does he identify as? A wanker? Anyway, has revealed he is worried he would not survive in a male prison if he was moved. And I'm not using the pronouns, he is a man. Speaking to the Daily Record, Eastwood described how prior to being moved to Cornton Vale, he was threatened by his male cellmates. Oh, bless. So you're not very brave, are you, after all? You know, you can do some terrible things, but when it comes to it, you have no balls. He said the main threat was that I would suffer serious SV. Good. And it was a relief to be moved to the female estate. I'm sure it was. However, if you'd have stayed in the men's estate, you'd have learnt your lesson, and your time would have been more fruitful, shall we say, when you contemplate the mistakes you've made in life. I think the Scottish Prison Service staff manage trans prisoners well, but it would be impossible for me to feel safe in a male prison. Well, it was pretty impossible for your cellmate to feel safe when you were doing what you were doing to him. So don't give me the cosh about, oh, I don't feel safe. You look while you're in prison. That's what you deserve. I have no history of gender V, says the man who ended the life of another man, but he's not V, you know. But the recent outcry has led to the SPS having to review every transgender person in custody. This man is delusional. He's delusional in that he pretends to be a woman. He's delusional that he pretends that he's a baby. But he is ultimately massively delusional when he tells people that he is not a threat to the safety of others. He very much is, and he deserves to be in a male man's prison, serving hard time, doing the time for the crime with other men. And he's just simply because he's a bit scared is not an excuse to have a man in a woman's prison. Anyway, I'm going to finish there and come up. It is wrong and it is bonkers. We need to be told who ultimately is responsible for the making of these decisions. Who, person, committee, whatever, sits there and says, actually, yes, this man, we will pander to his requirements. We will go along and pretend that he's a woman. We will put him in with other women, with vulnerable women, in a jail. We will pretend that he's a baby. We will give him a dummy and change his nappy and give him baby food. And somebody is signing off on that. We need to find out who that somebody is and fire them instantly. They need to go. We cannot be having prisoners dictating who and what they are when we all know what they are. They're men. They're men who've committed sometimes appalling crimes. And yet we have to go along with this delusional fantasy so that we don't upset their hurty little fifis. Well, if we picked these men up and said, right, enough shite, in the prison you go, into the men's prison, and there you are, you can sit and whimper all you like as the daddy of Ewing does what the hell he likes with you. It will give you ample time to sit and reflect on the mistakes of your life that have led to you being there. And we must, I don't know, perhaps review. Part of the parole process must be that they cannot be paroled while they are delusional. And they must remain in prison while they insist that they're women. Because obviously they're not women and they are therefore not fit for society because of their mental problems. Now they can seek mental help in prison. Sure, I'm not one to remove medical help from people in prison. Let them see the psychiatrist. And when the psychiatrist turns around and says no, they're deluded, they stay in prison until they can accept reality. In the meantime, fire everybody who's pandering. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I'm going to stop now. Got to the end. If you like what you're seeing here, hit that subscribe button. We're very close to a target I'd like to hit, and it'd be great if you just hit the subscribe button and move us along up. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, look after yourself. Do not pander to deluded people's fantasies. And goodbye.